The Israeli military says it has begun a, quote, wide-scale attack against Hamas targets there. You're looking at video coming to us from Gaza. Israel says it is in response to a shooting attack on its soldiers at the border fence between Israel and Gaza today. The Palestinian Ministry of Health says Israeli soldiers shot 4 people dead during the weekly Friday protests. Let's bring in Ian Lee. He is reporting from Gaza. What's going on? Tell us what the Israeli military is doing this evening.
Well, Hala, we've seen a number of airstrikes more toward the central Gaza region this evening, and this is the wide-scale bombing campaign that Israel says they're undertaking after the events earlier today. And let's just back up and describe what happened. You had these protests, which have been happening every week, every Friday since March, where you have Gazans go to the fence and you have these protests that almost always turn deadly. Over 140 Palestinians have been killed in these protests. But today there was an attack, the Israeli army says, on their soldiers with sniper fire, grenades, other explosives. What they called it is a very serious event, and it happened around 5 p.m. local time. And they say this is the reason why they are carrying out this wide-scale bombing campaign against Hamas targets. Now, they won't give us the details of what's happening. We do know that Israeli soldiers were targeted. We don't know at this moment if any were injured or what the status of them are. But we do know that Israel retaliated. You had these attacks by Israel. 3 of those people who were killed were members of Hamas's military wing, Qassam. The other person we're hearing is a civilian. But tonight, I got to tell you, Hala, it's pretty tense. Everyone we've been talking to, war is on their lips. Now, will this turn into one? That's what people are worried about. And we got this tweet from the UN Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process, Nikolai Mladenov. He said, everyone in Gaza needs to step back from the brink, not next week, not tomorrow, right now. Those who want to provoke Palestinians and Israelis into another war must not succeed. So right now, I'm sure the UN as well as the Egyptians are trying to talk to both sides to try to bring everyone back from the brink, Hala.
And as is always the case in Gaza, it's such a densely populated strip of land with, airstrikes routinely causing physical damage, sometimes deaths on the civilian side. I mean, how much more intense is the bombing tonight compared to other instances where the Israeli military has bombed parts of the Gaza Strip?
Well, they described it as wide scale, and I gotta say it's pretty early to see what actually comes out of this. Usually a lot of these airstrikes happen after midnight and in the early morning hours to limit any sort of civilian casualties. But I gotta say, last weekend we saw the largest bombing campaign against Gaza since the 2014 war. 2 civilians, 2 teenagers were killed in that bombing. And you're right, when there are these wide-scale bombing campaigns, civilians a lot of the time are injured, they're killed. Now, Israel, for their part, will say that they're trying to take as much consideration and care, trying not to kill civilians. But as you pointed out, this is one of the most densely populated places on the planet. And so it is very difficult. Even with these pinpoint precision bombing, you get the shrapnel that flies out, and that time will take out civilians. So this is a very tense time, a very dangerous time, especially if this escalates further. If we see a large-scale bombing campaign that the militants here in Gaza respond with rockets, with mortars, this really could spiral out of control. So that's what we're going to be watching tonight, Hala.
Ian Lee, thanks very much, reporting in Gaza.